Thank you for your patience. The weather has created a little problem for us, but I want to welcome you all again. It's like Groundhog Day. I want to welcome you all again to the City Council meeting tonight. We're glad you're all here on this crazy evening, and we're going to begin this meeting with a land acknowledgement. The land that Eureka rests on is known in the Wiyot language as Jirojiji. Past actions by local, state, and federal governments removed the Wiyot and other indigenous peoples from the land and threatened to destroy their cultural practices. The city of Eureka acknowledged the Wiyot community, their elders, both past and present, as well as future generations. This acknowledgement demonstrates the city's commitment to dismantle the ongoing legacies of settler colonialism. If we could get a roll call, please.
Councilmember Castellano?
Here.
Councilmember Moulton?
I'm here.
Councilmember Fernandez?
Present.
Councilmember Bauer?
Here.
Councilmember Contreras-Deloche?
Here.
Mayor Burgell?
Here. And if all who would care to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we had no closed session this evening, so we will move right on to our proclamations. Our first proclamation is for the Great American Smokeout with Councilmember Castellano, and we have Sage Williams and some Eureka High students here to accept this proclamation. Why don't you guys all come on up? Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for being here. I'll read the proclamation. I know you all have a few words to share. This is the City of Eureka Proclamation in recognition of the Great American Smokeout, November 19th, 2024. Whereas the American Cancer Society encourages all tobacco users to join the Great American Smokeout and quit tobacco for at least one day, and whereas each year nearly 34,000 California adults die from smoking and 20,000 kids become new daily smokers, and whereas vaping and electronic cigarettes has made smoking more attractive to youth and harder to quit, and whereas electronic cigarettes create hazardous waste in the form of plastics, semiconductors, heavy metals, and lithium-ion batteries for which there is no established disposable or recovery procedure. And whereas 14% of 7th graders in Arcata have tried electronic cigarettes and 10% of 11th graders are regular users, with more than double that rate in non-traditional high schools. And whereas there are many resources to help people quit using nicotine, including Kick It California and a special program that youth can access through their schools called whyvape.org, now therefore be it proclaimed that the City Council of Eureka, California hereby recognizes and supports the American Cancer Society's Great American Smokeout on Thursday, November 21st, 2024, and encourages all residents who use tobacco products to consider that they do not have to stop smoking in one day, just start with day one.
Right there. Hello, we are the Friday Night Live Club at Eureka High School, and today we will be speaking to you about the tobacco crisis in our schools and the Great American Smokeout. Tobacco use in our schools is something that affects all of us. We have gone through school and we have witnessed our peers using things like vape pens, and it has become more known about and used at younger ages. The Great American Smokeout helps combat the use of tobacco in our youth and culture by adults quitting smoking, which benefits not just the health of the adults, but the youth, translating to our society as a whole.
According to Humboldt.gov, 2019 to 2020, 39.2% of high school students in Humboldt County had used tobacco products in their lifetime, and 17.4% had used in the past 30 days. 80.4% of students reported having a complete home ban on vapes in their homes, but as the statistics, and any one of our students could say that, despite these home bans, many of them still vape, and all of them are affected by it.
The Great American Smokeout is more than just getting someone to quit for smoking for their health. It's to get someone to stop smoking so other people know the impacts of smoking tobacco. It doesn't just affect one person, but their kids, the kids in our community and schools, and for the future generations. The Great American Smokeout helps to keep our youth happy, healthy, and in a functional society.
We call upon the City Council to take proactive measures to combat the rising issue of commercial tobacco use among young people and to continue supporting the Great American Smokeout. We should all come together to make our youth happy and healthy again, to help lower smoking and vaping by people in our community, and for the betterment of all of the youth.
Did you want to say a few words?
I'm just going to say that this is our Tide Youth Coalition that works within Friday Night Live, and I work with the Nicotine and Tobacco Prevention Program within Public Health, and we just really strive to change our community, and we hope for the better. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you. Okay. And our next proclamation is for World AIDS Day. And Dwayne, do you both want to come on up? Councilmember Moulton?
Thank you. Welcome. City of Eureka Proclamation in recognition of World AIDS Day 2024, December 1st, 2024. Whereas 2024 commemorates 43 years since the identification of AIDS, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, and whereas approximately 39.9 million people worldwide are estimated to be living with HIV, and whereas over 42.3 million people have died since 1981 due to AIDS-related illnesses. And whereas it is estimated that 1.2 million are living with HIV in the United States, and whereas approximately 34,000 new HIV infections continue to occur each year in the United States, and approximately 1 in 8 are undiagnosed and unaware of their HIV infection, and whereas over 300 people have been diagnosed with HIV in Humboldt County, and whereas the medical research and treatments are extending and improving the lives of many people living with HIV in the United States, a vaccine to prevent HIV infection is still needed. And whereas HIV continues to be a highly stigmatized disease, and whereas this year's World AIDS Day theme among the international community is collective action, sustain and accelerate HIV progress. And whereas it is our task to continue to support ongoing HIV prevention efforts that help people lower their risk of acquiring HIV/AIDS through sexual behavior and drug use, and to comfort and support those living with HIV/AIDS and their loved ones. Now, therefore, I, Katie Moulton, on behalf of Mayor Kim Burgell and the Eureka City Council, in recognition of the impact HIV/AIDS has in our community, declare December 1st, 2024 as World AIDS Day, which will be observed locally on December 7th and in the city of Eureka during Arts Alive at the North of 4th venue, and urge community to observe this day and encourage our families, friends, and neighbors to increase their awareness and knowledge of HIV and AIDS.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Madam Mayor, council members, my name's Dwayne Leal, and I've been living with HIV for 35 years. That's more than half of my lifetime. I'm a long-term survivor, and I guess I have to thank my doctor, David Horowitz, the AIDS coordinator, Sergio Codina, the nurses, the phlebotomists, the entire staff at Arcata Open Door and the Open Door clinics. I'd also like to thank the Wellness Center here in Eureka, the caseworkers, the staff, and everyone else that works there. They're all great people, but that telephone confused me here. I value my life, so I better thank my wife, Lilia Leal, because, she's taken care of me for so many years. The Eureka Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence have for some time and with good money have spent good money to try to secure a portion of the AIDS quilt. Sam and Michael Weiss, Jim Willits have done so much to bring this plan to fruition. Sam spearheaded the program, so let him tell you about it. But first, Katie and Scott, congratulations on you guys' re-election.
Mayor and Council, Sam Lanier, Eureka resident. Like Dwayne said, this year we'll be bringing the AIDS Memorial Quilt to Humboldt County. It'll be displayed in 2 spots from December 1st through December 8th. It'll be at Cal Poly Humboldt's library on the 2nd floor. And the Critical Race and Gender Studies program is hosting that, as well as a display of World AIDS Day for a week for the students there. And then on December 7th from 2 to 8 p.m. at North of 4th, we'll have 6 panels of the World AIDS Memorial Quilt. Several of the panels are members of the community or have names of members of the community that have passed or family members that have lost loved ones. So that'll be at North of 4th on Arts Alive. And at 6 p.m., we have a speaker series where we have a keynote speaker that was on President Obama's HIV Council. Will be here coming in from Canada. And then we have author from the East Coast who's recently written a book about the stigma of HIV for somebody that's not in the queer community. Her father was infected with HIV, and she talks about the story of her family living with it, not knowing about it, and her father dying with HIV. So we're trying to bring it kind of a different perspective as well. And then several local residents will be speaking in a speaker panel. So I encourage everybody to come stop in from 2 to 8. The quilt will be displayed, and then from 6 to 8, we'll have the speaker series and more of the large event. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your important work. Okay, and I have one final proclamation, but I do not see.
He's busy dealing with the generator.
Oh, he is sidetracked with the generator, so I'm going to go ahead and give my report then, and potentially he'll be back at that time. So it's been a really busy week. First things first, though, and most importantly, before I talk about the things that I've been doing, I want to let everybody know out there that the Extreme Weather the Extreme Weather Overnight Center is open tonight. They're pickup at 4 locations, starting at 6 p.m. and ending at 8 p.m. Those locations are Free Meal, Sacco Amphitheater, the Hope Center, and 14th and Coster Streets. So again, the Extreme Weather Overnight Center is open this evening. Super important. So if you see folks out when you're driving or what have you, please pass this information on. We're a community and we need to support each other. Pickup locations are at Free Meal, Sacco Amphitheater, and the Hope Center. And then folks in the morning, they will be transported back to whatever service center they were at when they were picked up at 7 a.m. So please, 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 if you see folks, please let them know. It's going to be really rough tonight. We really want to make sure that people feel safe and that they are safe. So I wanted to share that important information. One other thing that's going on is we do have applications for appointments to our boards and commissions. For anyone that wants to get involved, it's a great way to get involved in our city and have your voice heard even more than just, coming here and that type of situation. But just so you know, we have the Community Oversight or Police Practices Commission, Design Review Committee, Economic Development Commission, Eureka Energy Commission, the Planning Commission, and the Transportation Safety Commission. So if you're interested in any of those, they'll be open until they're filled, and you can check in with Pam Pell. Now I'll just tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. A lot of important things happening. So that's the weather. Oh, look at that. Are we on?
Not yet.
So we're going to take an, oh no, there we are. I see us. So we're good? So we're good. The power just went out, friends who are not in the building. So just a little bit about what I've been up to. I did have the opportunity to go out to, I'm going to really not say this right, Digawutkul, which I'll learn it a little better as time goes on. But Friends of the Dunes returned 357 acres of the Samoa Dunes wetlands to the Wiyot tribe. And it was an honor and a privilege to be there and to make some remarks. Also, Supervisor Arroyo was there, and we were both able to make some remarks. Beautiful event, and just, really one of those sacred, sobering moments of just beauty and joy. Then it's just been a week of human excellence. I just have to say that out loud. I was invited to the Humboldt Literacy Project to give out their certificates of success. And I'll tell you, friends, that was a beautiful experience. People from all over, all different countries, all different languages, working to learn how to read. We honored the learners as well as the tutors, and there were some magical and beautiful stories there. I did attend the Southwest Rotary Veterans Day celebration. I don't know if it's a celebration, but honoring veterans, I guess it is. And again, that is really always a moving ceremony. What's really interesting is as time goes by, there are no more World War II veterans. There were none there. We still have a few Korean veterans, and they always do a ceremony for the people that were lost, and they have a table that the Coast Guard rings the bell for. And I'll tell you, it's really, if you've never been, I would encourage you to go next year. It's really impactful. Let's see. Oh, and then lastly, this is super exciting, you guys. So Zane Junior High, student-led, honored Ruby Bridges on the day of her integration into public school. And if you don't know about Ruby Bridges, she was a girl. She was 6 years old, and she was integrated as a little black girl. She was integrated, the first one, to public school. And if you look into that at all, you will realize the complete, I was going to say the H word, but I don't want to say that, but the complete, I don't even have a word for it. It was horrible for her. Let me put it that way. There were grown-ups throwing things at her and unwilling to let their kids go to school with her, and this little girl persevered. And so our kids at Zane, there were like 174, almost 200 kids and grown-ups, showed up, planned it, showed up, and walked to school in honor of this woman. And it just really is, always seeing our youth working on these things, it's just incredible. This is our future, and it's really, when you see things like that, it's bright for sure. And then lastly, congratulations, Scott and Katie. This is so excellent. So happy for both of you. Wanted to let you know, too, Thanksgiving is the turkey trot. And if you've never been, it's a great way to exercise before you have all the food that you can possibly eat. And they do give out pies as awards sometimes, so it kind of depends on your time and all of that. It's a raffle. So that starts at 9 a.m. at the gazebo. Please, during the holidays, do not drink and drive. Call somebody. And with that, that is my report. And I see, oh no, one last thing that I learned from the Ruby Bridges. I watched a documentary on her today, and she's 70 now. And one of the things she said that I think is really important, I wanted to share. She says, racism is a grown-up disease. Let's stop using our kids to spread it. And I thought that was really powerful for a girl, a woman now, who went through what she went through. Thank you. Excuse me, what was that, Councilmember Fernandez? Okay, thank you. Are we back on? Or do I need to adjourn the meeting?
We're still on YouTube. Let me check Zoom. We can see him, but I don't think they can see us.
Okay, so I'm sorry, this is out of the ordinary, the weather and the power being out, so we're just trying to really work together to figure out what's next. Okay, so apparently we've been directed to carry on, and that's what we're going to do. Apologize for the confusion. And lastly, in the mayor's reports, we have a very special proclamation. And if we could please have the Director of Public Works, Brian Gerving, come on up here. So the City of Eureka proclamation I have to breathe. In recognition of Brian Gerving, Director of Public Works. Whereas Brian Gerving has served the City of Eureka for 18 years, beginning his distinguished career on June 19, 2006 as a plans examiner. Whereas Brian took a pivotal role in 2009 by initiating the Code Enforcement Unit, demonstrating his dedication to ensuring the safety and well-being of the community. And whereas on August 16, 2010, Brian was promoted to Chief Building Official, where he showcased exceptional leadership and expertise and well-being of the community. And whereas on March 17, 2015, Brian was appointed Director of Public Works, where he has led with foresight, professionalism, and an unwavering commitment to improving the infrastructure and services that enhance the daily lives of Eureka residents. And whereas Brian always brings his characteristic preparedness, intelligence, and analytical approach to guide the city as he problem solves and assists all departments and divisions across the city. And whereas Brian's wit and perspicacity, exemplified by his clever use of memes and his lighthearted descriptions of code case properties as adorbs, has brought levity and camaraderie to all who have worked with him. And whereas Brian is widely respected in his mindfulness, intelligence, and dedication to public service, qualities that have made him an invaluable member of the City of Eureka team. And whereas the City of Eureka recognizes and celebrates Brian's many accomplishments and contributions, as well as the lasting impact he has made on our community. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Kim Burgell, on behalf of the Eureka City Council, the City of Eureka hereby honors and thanks Brian Gerving for 18 years of outstanding service, leadership, and dedication to our city, and wishes him continued success and happiness in all his future endeavors.
Okay.
That means that I don't have to say it.
Yes, you do.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Can you say things about it? Yes.
Are you going out with the blackout?
Okay. Thank you. A few words, please.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. And first off, I have to apologize. It was first Councilmember Contreras-Deloach who recognized that I'm not exactly dressed for a council meeting tonight. I brought a change of clothes. I just didn't have time to change into them. Unusual night for us, so thanks for understanding that. And I just want to say thank you as well. It's been a great opportunity working for the city. I've really enjoyed the work we've done with the council, with the staff and management team. the Public Works Department and the team we've built there. And I very much value what they've accomplished and what the city as a whole has accomplished. And I look forward to seeing all of that work continue to succeed. And regardless of whether I'm leaving, I still have a vested interest in seeing that work continue, and I'll do whatever I can to help out. So thank you very much. I've really appreciated the opportunity.
Thank you. Don't go anywhere. Are there any council members who would like to make any comments? All right, who's first? Councilmember Bauer.
Now, I'm trying not to choke up. I've known Brian since you started. I think working with our department, my department that I work for, and you've always been so knowledgeable. I mean, the city better than anybody in the city, probably. I mean, if you talk about everything from water to sewer to everything we do, and you've been invaluable to this community. I appreciate you and wish you the best, and hope we'll see you again. Thanks, man.
Councilmember Contreras-Deloach.
Well, I've known you the least amount of time, and I apologize, but I saw one more opportunity to tease you tonight, and I was like, I'm taking it. Brian, I just want to thank you. I feel like, the tour that you took me on right after I was elected, and I talked about this at the time, but Brian was so nice, and we went to go see the big water tower thing. And it scared me so bad. And I had known Brian for about, 25 minutes. And I sort of wrapped myself sort of around his arm and leg because it scared me so bad when we opened up the door, and it was just this massive water tank with red lights. Anyway, it was terrifying. But thanks for being kind about that and everything else since.
Councilmember Moulton just recognized what you were talking about, and not
it was
quite
so,
the same reaction at the time.
It was so scary. Yeah. It was terrifying. Anyway, but the thing that I've admired about you the whole time we worked is how knowledgeable you are. You're totally honest about what you're thinking in any given situation, but you're always, I was trying to think of a good word, classy about your presentation and very composed. And I just really admired that. So I think that's an interesting combination in leaders that you don't get to see a lot. And I really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Castellano.
Director Gerving, I admire you and appreciate you. It's been a real honor to be on City Council and learn a lot from you about just caring for the city. I really see Public Works as kind of tending to the bones of the organization in terms of, the things that people don't necessarily see every day, but are kind of the absolute necessary parts of what it takes to keep people living together in a community. And, I think your dedication to that care, and sometimes the unseen work, is truly honorable. And, and also it's very tangible how much people that you've been in leadership with respect you and appreciate the way that you tend to not only to the city, but to the people who work for the city. So thank you. I truly hope to see you, regularly in the community, and just want to, just honor the impact you've made. Also the time and the serious effort you've put into addressing blighted properties is something that has really transformed the everyday life of Eureka residents. I think many of us who have lived here for a number of years, those take such an impact on the day-to-day lives of people, and the way that you've changed that in our city is much appreciated by many, and even people who maybe haven't experienced that. When I first lived here, those properties were, they really caused a lot of harm to how people valued the city as a whole. And I just want to appreciate that you've been part of the transformation for how people really value the community, whether they're coming here to work or whether they live here. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Councilmember Moulton?
A lot of what I'd like to say has been covered by my fellow council members, but I just want to thank you for the fact that the work that Public Works does is ecological, and it's about public health, it's about public safety, and I see you taking a lot of pains with that to make our city a better place. So thank you for your service, and I hope that you bring the same pragmatism and forthright nature to whatever is next for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do I see a hand up on Zoom?
All right.
No. Councilmember Fernandez? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Did you want to say anything? Sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Well, that's why I didn't raise my hand. I don't know Brian well enough, and I think he's done fantastic work, but I can't really say anything that hasn't been said.
Great. Well, thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege, Director.
Same here,
Director
very
of
much
Public
so.
Works.
You can call me Brian.
I can call you Brian now? Oh my goodness. Okay, Brian. Thank you so much for everything you've done for our city. We appreciate you. We honor you, and best for anything you do. We know you're going to bring it. So,
Thank you very much.
Well, bittersweet. So now we will move on to public comment. This is the time for members of the public who wish to be heard on matters that do not appear on the agenda. City Council policy is to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. The public will be allowed to speak concurrently with the calling of an agenda item following the staff presentation of that item. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take an action on an item that does not appear on the agenda. So do we have anyone in chambers who would like to public comment? Welcome.
I'll go ahead and go first because my wife's at home and she's scared to death of the wind. And, at any rate, yeah, so I missed the last meeting, but I got to watch it while I was laying in a hospital bed last weekend, and Humboldt Access came on, and so I got to see our mayor brag about the toolbox that she has available to her to shut down free speech. And I just wanted to remind you that the First Amendment's a pretty stout edifice. I doubt if a little tin pot dictator from a backwoods little town in Humboldt County with a box full of Harbor Freight tools is going to be able to dismantle it. So good luck on that. The other thing refers in reference to the shelter that's open tonight. I have friends out there, and I just found out today I have a niece out there. And so I reached out to the council members that I could, and of course I got ignored by mine. I got a response from another one, and I found out that the plan is to do the same thing as last year, even though last year few people took advantage of it. And last year I told people why that was, and I told a council member today why that is. Okay, you're dealing with a population that a lot of them are mentally ill, they're paranoid, and a lot of them believe that they are in imminent danger of being rounded up by the government and sent to FEMA camps to be exterminated. That may sound funny to you, but it's a reality out there to them. And here you are, you're saying, we have shelter for you, but the only way you can get it is if you get on this bus and take a ride. Okay, these people view those buses as the equivalent of the trains to Auschwitz. And you wonder why no one wants to take advantage of your offer of shelter. Maybe you should rethink the way you're doing it. You know, all it takes is like talking to them, you know, and you talk to them long enough and it'll come out, you know, that they're afraid of this. And so here you are offering trains to Auschwitz and wondering why nobody's getting on. So anyway, think about it.
Thanks for being here. Glad you're out of the hospital.
Me too.
Come on up. Hi, welcome, Nezzy.
Thank you. Good evening. That was heavy. But I am here because a couple weeks ago, the council, the city designated this week, the 17th to the 23rd, as Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. And this fits right in. I wanted to make some of you aware, you probably all are aware, but maybe the community isn't, of some of the information that we have about our unhoused population. And the pit count this year tells us that the pit is the point in time count. One happens on one day in winter every year. And this year it tells us that we have 1,573 people that are unhoused. And of those people that are unhoused, we have 1,194 that are unsheltered, which is a huge number. And if you look back on the statistics for the point in time count, we've had large numbers, but we haven't had large numbers like this. And in previous years, when we had, what was it? In 2013, the count was 1,579, and in 2015, it was 1,319. They were identified with 844 unsheltered, and more than half of those were in the city of Eureka, 750 people. That's the demographics of that, or the geographic distribution, has changed quite a bit. While Eureka count was 323 this year, Arcata's unsheltered homeless is 553. And then we have Redway 51, Samoa 45, Blue Lake 42, McKinleyville 38, Fortuna 30, and Garberville 27, Trinidad 16, Hoopa 14, and the others fewer than 10 as we go. That's a lot of people, and I know these are just numbers on a chart, but they are real folks that are out there. And those who were sheltered, that actually were sheltered homeless were 379, which indicates that we still don't have a lot of places for people to be that are unhoused. Mostly they're unsheltered. And some of them are because they don't want to get on a bus like that. But for the most part, there's a big push to keep people away from the city. So to have people come in from the city, whether it's Arcata or Eureka, is a huge step in a different direction. And so the pit count tracked over time has changed a lot in the way we get data. Now we just observe people. Before, we used to have to interview them and do that sort of stuff. But the reality is that, we have folks that are staying in the Mission and in places that are considered transitional, but they're still considered unhoused. And so we have a lot to do to make that happen.
Thank you.
Am I done? All right. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Nezzy. Is there anyone else in chambers who care to comment? Come on up, Jasmine. Thanks for being here.
Hey there, I'm a social work student at Cal Poly Humboldt. I intern at AHA with Nezzy. Just wanted to say that Humboldt is proud to be rural, self-reliant, and innovative. We take care of each other during moments of crisis, support local organizations, and aspire for success of our community. Yet a community is only as strong as its most vulnerable members. 6% of Humboldt's population endures homelessness. The devastating hardship houseless individuals experience is a reflection of what we must work on and needs our immediate attention. Otherwise, our community values are compromised by our negligence. We must remind ourselves that homelessness affects us all, causing stress amongst the community, provoking financial strain with the use of tax dollars due to unjust criminalization, cost of paying for homeless-related medical bills, which has been high and growing. The impact that this impacts our local economy. We know this. According to the National Law Center on Homeless and Poverty, is costing taxpayers $31,000 a year to criminalize a single person suffering from homelessness. Furthermore, this problem exacerbates a public health crisis due to lack of care, environmental hazards, injury, mental health strain, and the symptoms go on. A study published earlier this year found that the life expectancy of unhoused individuals is 27 years younger than the national average. Housing is not a privilege. It's a fundamental human right. Houselessness is worse than ever, and the severity of the situation has increased. To protect the dignity of our community, we need to aim for lasting change. We are in need of a new approach, such as focusing on housing and shelter solutions, like tiny house villages, legal campgrounds, and ending the criminalization of homelessness. We can come together in our strengths and innovations to create holistic and multifaceted solutions to address this crisis. Humboldt is home to compassionate, creative, and community-minded people. Let us show that through our actions. Your action to supporting creating safe, warm, and dry places for unsheltered residents in Eureka is essential. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in chambers who'd care to comment during public comment? Seeing none, we'll look over to Zoom. Is there anyone on Zoom? Do you see anyone, Shannon?
I see no one on Zoom for public comment.
Great. So with that, we're going to close the public comment and move on to our public hearings.
Pardon me, Mayor. Just to the chair. There's a statement earlier during public comment referring to people accessing the warming center, and I just want to let people know that you don't have to be on a city provided transportation to access the warming center. The city is providing transportation to people, but anyone who arrives at the warming center, no matter how they get there, would be welcome.
Correct, and I'll just give an update on that. The warming center, we had 2 faith-based churches. One of the pastors has had health issues, and so we're down to 1. Right now we have the Faith Center out on Bay Street that is providing that service on, I have it right here. They are available on Wednesday, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And thanks to Betty Chin, the alternative days, which are Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Betty will be operating the warming center. And so that will be on 7th and C Street, which is a more centralized location. Anybody can access those directly, however they choose to get there. But we also provide services. The vehicles that we use are manned by our outreach workers that are in contact with these individuals on a day-to-day basis every day, as well as our mental health workers, our clinicians, as well as our managing mental health clinician is also made available for these services as well. They are taken care of at all 4 of those locations for those who don't have transportation, but however they choose to get there, they can go there. And there are no barriers. There's no barriers for pets, and there's no barriers for couples. So all of them are welcoming, and there are no barriers in however they choose to get there. Those 4 locations that the mayor referred to, there's a 6:30 pickup at the dining facility on 2nd Street, or 3rd Street, excuse me. There's a 7 o'clock pickup at the Sacco Amphitheater right next to the Adorney Center. 3rd location, I can't remember. The 4th location is the Blue Angel Village that they're picking up there and taking folks to the center as well. So there's 4 locations that are picked up on a half-hour intervals for folks to get there. But however people choose to get there, they're more than welcome to come.
No, we can't. Though. Okay, thank you, but we're not going to have this conversation. Thank you for the update. We can talk at the break. Appreciate that clarification. So we're moving on to public hearings. Transit needs assessment public hearing. Director Millar.
Good evening. Tonight's public hearing is about unmet transit needs. With us tonight, we have Michelle Nielsen from HCOG, or the Humboldt County Association of Governments. She'll be going through a presentation about the process and what happens after tonight's public hearing.
Well, good evening. Thank you for having me. Speaking into the mic. I appreciate the council hearing my presentation. Before we get started, all the slide deck that you're going to see this evening has been provided to Lane, and it is available for distribution within the city, and it could be posted on the city's website if that so choose. And before I get started, kind of the bottom line up front, all input is valuable, regardless of whether it may not be an unmet transit need, but it can be used as, that input can be used as documentation to support grant applications for improving transit service. So input from members of the public, the council, whether it's this evening or through the other channels that are available, that is all welcomed. And then tonight's ask after my presentation is to open a public hearing, allow residents to comment on transit needs in Humboldt, and then close the public hearing and direct staff to forward a summary of the meeting's input from HCOG. Next slide, please. There we go. So this slide just gives an overview of the unmet transit needs process. This process is part of implementing the Transportation Development Act, which provides funding for transit. An unmet transit need is a public transportation need that's not being currently met by the transportation system for the public. And this process identifies and evaluates the adequacy of the existing transportation system using that input. Locally, the process involves public hearings, releasing online survey, receiving comments by email and phone calls at the HCOG office, and there's more information about that. And comments are accepted through the end of the year for this cycle, and the online survey will be open until the end of the year as well. Next slide, please. So unmet transit needs at a minimum are requested trips by residents who do not have access to public transit or specialized transit or private transportation services, or residents who don't have the means to travel for their jobs, medical care, social activities, education, that sort of thing. It can also be transportation routes that were identified or services that were identified in a regional transportation plan. And another aspect of it is there is sufficient broad-based support that means that persons who will likely use the service demonstrate routine support, and that threshold is a minimum of 2 requests for that service from the general public. Unmet transit needs does not include improved or funded or scheduled funding for that's on track for implementation, minor operational improvements, trips for primary, secondary school transportation, sidewalk improvements, and doesn't include streets and roads needs. Next slide, please. Got a little animation here. So there's 2 tests that are looked at. First, is the input, is it reasonable? So is there an unmet need? So we talked about that. And then is it reasonable to meet? And the Transportation Development Act does allow the local board that administers the Transportation Development Act funding to adopt a local definition that reflects the conditions, provided it still needs to be within the definitions of state law, but it does provide some local flavor to it. So in 2023, the HCOG board revisited the reasonable to meet criteria, and it in a nutshell, service must be operationally feasible, which means and financially sustainable, adequate roadways, safe to operate. There is sufficient funding available from identified funding sources to cover operating costs for at least 3 years. The service must be projected to meet the minimum marginal fare box return ratio of 10% within 2 years. It can't compare unmet transit needs with the needs for streets and roads, kind of what I just said. And the performance of a service found to be reasonable to meet that is implemented is regularly evaluated within the first 1 or 2 years of service. So that's not really the criteria, so I should work on that slide. But anyways, so it's regularly evaluated because there is an expectation that when they launch a new service that it may not be peak, be optimal when it first launched. So it's evaluated regularly, about 6-month basis when it's initially launched. Next slide, please. So this slide just kind of gives us an overview of the timeline for this cycle of the unmet transit needs. So we're in the public comment period. Then in January of next year, the input that we receive will be compiled and reviewed by transit providers. And then the unmet transit needs draft will be prepared and reviewed and get recommendations from the SS-TAC. That's a committee that provides recommendations on unmet transit needs to the HCOG board. There'll be opportunity for public review, and then ultimately looking at adoption in May by the HCOG board. Next slide, please. Yeah. So we do through this process, because this is an annual process, there are transit needs that we frequently hear. Need for more frequent service, earlier and later service during the weekdays, Sunday service on RTS, and later night service on Friday and Saturday between Eureka and Arcata. So just HTA provided some ridership numbers for just to show, like, the orange rusty brown color is kind of the lowest point, COVID, and just showing the increase in since then of ridership since then for the routes and systems they operate. So which shows, that's every kind of uniformly increasing on this slide. Next slide, please. And again, similar trend for Southern Humboldt, Willow Creek, but Dial Ride did experience a drop in ridership in the last fiscal year. Willow Creek did see recovery, and that is in part to their providing service for students, transit service, students who live in Willow Creek and go to school in Arcata. So they saw a larger increase. Next slide. So the total ridership over getting close to 500,000 passenger trips for the last fiscal year, and that does include the ridership for the newly launched North Coast Express for the fiscal year, at the end of the fiscal year. Next slide. And then this just kind of gives essentially the similar information just over a longer term, just showing that ridership is continuing to increase. The most recent fiscal year, the increase was a little bit less than the previous, but that is trending upwards. Next slide. And then Arcata, Mad River, showing similar trends, increasing ridership. The red line at the bottom does show that HSU enrollment over the same time, which has been relatively flat, but the ridership has continued to increase. Next slide, please. So just real quickly, some of the accomplishments, probably well known in the city by HTA, what they've gotten done in recent years and what's coming down the road. Some good news for Eureka residents and other transit riders in Humboldt. Adding hydrogen fueling station and buses, development of the intermodal transit center should now be on track, not to be derailed. And they were recently awarded a grant for $18.7 million, and the primary uses of that funding will be to expand the fleet of vehicles, buses that are lower emission, improve information for transit riders. That means real-time departure and arrival information at the bus stops, and some general also other capital improvements at the bus stops, and increased frequency of service. And so some of the initiatives that have been implemented that you may have seen, may be familiar with, unified branding. The Ride Humboldt logo is part of the marketing. Tap to pay, service is now available on the buses to make it easier for people to ride the bus. And the Flex Rider is been a pilot project for microtransit, and it's an on-demand shared rider service that provides, sort of similar to Uber, but not quite that. But what it does is it makes use of open spots on the dial-a-ride vans, and it's going to be expanded into McKinleyville and Arcata next year. Should be next year, with funding that was received. But it's in the greater Humboldt Bay area, so there residents in Eureka and greater Eureka would have access to the Flex Rider program. Next slide. And also launched, I think there's quite a bit of marketing on this, the North State Express Route 101 that was launched earlier this year. Since the launch to the end of June of this year, the ridership has been over 600 riders, and it provides a more efficient and effective way for folks to travel to Ukiah, and then actually they can connect to the Bay Area using Mendocino Transit and some of the other transit services south of us. So creating more travel opportunities for transit that are greener and more environmental friendly and affordable. Next slide, please. So if there's questions, we invite folks folks can email the HCOG office. They can call the office. Those are ways to give input. And then next slide. And then we do have the online survey. It's English and Spanish, and those are available for folks to share. There's open-ended questions in there. It takes less than 10 minutes to complete. Let's see. And again, all input would be welcomed. We want to hear. But that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Michelle? Councilmember Bauer.
Thank you for being here, Michelle. It was a great presentation. I just had a question about the ridership. I'm just really curious why we haven't returned to the levels before COVID. Like, where'd everybody go? I'm kind of baffled.
That's a great question. I don't have the answer for that, but we are working with HTA and to maybe have a better response to that as part of the report. How to market it and attract more people.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Any further questions? Okay, with that, thank you, Michelle. We will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in chambers who is here to comment on this item? Seeing none, we're going to move over to Zoom. Do you see anyone on Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom for public comment.
Great. So we'll return it back to council for comments and a vote. Councilmember Castellano?
Sure. And thank you, Michelle. And I have already gotten the opportunity to give some comment at the Humboldt Transit Authority meeting. So I'm just basically saying this for the sake of the public here and fellow council members. I do hear from folks at College of the Redwoods that there's a need for more transit there, and would love to just see more opportunities for outreach to students there who, folks I know who really don't have access to coming to town sometimes. It's a little too far to kind of get into town comfortably, especially if there's no transit available. And just appreciate these efforts, and I know that public meetings are not all, and so if there's ways that the city can help kind of lift this up and spread the word about the unmet transit needs and get it out through our social media, I think that would be really great.
Thank you for your comments. And it occurs to me as a point of order that there is no vote on this. We are directing staff on how to move forward with this. So if there's any further comments. Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing. Thank you, everybody. And that takes us to the consent calendar. All matters listed under this category are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion pursuant to City Council Resolution 2011-22. If a member of the public would like an item on the consent calendar pulled and discussed separately, the request shall be made to a council member prior to the meeting. Unless a specific request is made by a council member, the consent calendar will not be read. There will be no separate discussion of these items. And it looks like F2 is being pulled, the Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services Behavioral Health Infrastructure Grant Application Letter of Support. Are there any other items that? No. Okay, so can we get a motion, please?
Motion, sorry.
Oh, Councilmember Bauer.
Motion to approve the consent calendar minus F2.
Great.
Second?
Thank you. Please vote.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Fernandez. Unanimous yes vote. Motion carries.
Thank you, which brings us to F2. And will that be you or Director Beck?
Me.
Okay, City Manager Slattery.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and thank you, Mayor. This item here was brought before Council. It's the Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services, and their behavioral health is applying for an infrastructure grant from the Behavioral Health Infrastructure Grant Application, and staff is recommending a letter of support. The reasoning behind this application is to upgrade their psychiatric health facility, Semper Virens, which is currently located on H and Harris, in that general location. That's where the campus is. The campus is extremely outdated and is in need of renovation and upgrades. And the proposal for this grant is to relocate that facility with a new facility at the Public Health Branch parking lot, which is located on I and 5th Street. And so staff is recommending that. I do have the department head for Department of Health and Human Services, Connie Beck, on the line if there's any questions specific for her or for staff. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Director Beck? Councilmember Castellano?
Thank you, and thank you, Director Beck, for being here. It's greatly appreciated. I know that this particular endeavor is much needed, and so definitely appreciate your efforts. And I know that this won't necessarily fund the expansion of those services, but I'm wondering if you could speak to ways in which access to kind of critical mental health services will be expanded on in the coming years.
Thank you. Connie Beck, Health and Human Services Director. I guess I'll just say that this is a separate conversation. We do have some other services that are coming online in addition to what we are doing here with this Prop 1 application. So I believe that you're all aware that we have the adult crisis residential program that just started in, I think it was early October. That's up and running. And then we also have a Cutton location where the same community partner will be doing some work there with another residential facility for behavioral health. In addition to that, we are still in the process of working with Mad River Hospital for the crisis triage center, which will include a number of beds. We are doing both of the designs for the architectural designs for the crisis triage and the facility for Semper Virens at the same time. One we already have the grant for, which is the Mad River Hospital, but this one we do not have the grant for yet. But we're moving through the design process. So if we don't get this grant, we may get additional grants in the future.
And just to clarify, the facility that Director Beck is referring to for the crisis help is located on the one that was open in October is located here in Eureka on 6th and N Street. It was a permit that was recently closed out, and they're up and running currently now on 6th and N.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Any further questions? So I have one question. So I hear that you're working with Mad River. So is there any expansion with this new facility for sempervirens to kind of support this idea of getting people out, like we're doing, but getting more people out of the ER and more into this kind of sempervirens opportunity? Will there be more beds at this new facility? I guess is what I'm asking you.
There won't be more beds because the licensing is only for 16.
Mm-hmm.
But the additional housing and residential facilities that we have will give us the ability to move people quicker through a process, because some people get stuck in placement or lack of placement opportunity. So in all of the things that we're doing currently, this will assist.
Great.
And I just have to say, without a new facility, sempervirens is limited to the number of years it has left to provide the services at 720 Wood Street. That facility was built in, let me see here. We started the psychiatric facility in 69. Yeah, the building was built in 1906 and converted to the psychiatric hospital in 1969. We continue every year in our audits for licensing have issues with the facility just because of its age. We continue maintenance. I think we have $2.6 million worth of maintenance right now that needs to be done. And no matter how much maintenance we do, we never get to a place where, licensing, we don't meet the requirements anymore is what I should say.
I hear that. So are there any plans for the future to expand the number of beds? Or to upgrade the license, or no?
There's not an ability to expand the number of beds for the psychiatric facility, but there's always room for improvement of the number of beds that we have locally. It just wouldn't be for sempervirens.
Great. Okay. I appreciate that clarification. I know people that were born there like a long, long time ago. So, Councilmember Fernandez?
Thank you, Mayor. And I think you may have asked part of my question already. And just so I can hopefully better understand, Director Beck, is it that what you're saying is that with this potential new facility, then over near where, what is that, Health and Human Services, that's where we would be potentially looking for the new site?
It's actually right across the street from the courthouse. It's the public health parking.
Thank you, public health. Yeah. And so with the potential of this new site, the idea then is to not expedite, but to take these people who are in distress, in this emergent condition of mental health, and get them where they need to be, potentially in this residential housing or these other programs that you had described.
Sempervirens would still be utilized as a psychiatric facility like it is now. The additional beds that we have created and are creating now will assist with the continuum of care of the population that needs to be served. So I'll talk about the process. Someone is admitted to the emergency department. They are on 5150. They have an assessment. They need a higher level of care. If there's a bed open at sempervirens, they go there. If there's a bed open somewhere else, they go there. Then When they are ready for a lower level of care, like crisis residential, then they're transferred there to that place. When they're and we have lacked having crisis residential previously, so we will have that available now. And then we're going to have additional beds so that folks don't have to go out of the county for other acute residential services. They can stay here with their families and others, so that they're not sent out of county. And then in addition to that, we will have Mad River in a couple of years. We will have the crisis triage center at Mad River, which will have a sobering center and additional crisis residential beds there. So there's a lot of additional services that are coming in line, and right now we will continue to struggle with some of the services that need to be provided. And then I'll just add that, you know, Care Court starts December 1st, and then SB 43 comes along in next year. So there's really a lot happening within behavioral health that we're trying to get ready for, and just try to provide services that we're doing currently.
Okay, I appreciate you explaining all of that, and you know, I can understand at least some of the growing pains that we'll be experiencing, because you know, we will in fact have more service. The county will be offering more services. It's just allowing that time to progress. I want to go back to a moment where you had said that first they go to ER, and so that's still the case, that you know, these mental health patients as a 5150 are first going to the ER and then to sempervirens still. Why might that be the case if it's a mental health emergency, that they would go to the ER first?
Every person is required to have a medical clearance prior to going to the sempervirens, or even if they're being held for a longer period of time. So that's the reason for the medical clearance need at the hospital, at the emergency department.
Okay. I might want to talk to you more outside of this meeting about that then, and how that's the case. But barring that, the grant to build the new site there, as you said, across from the courthouse, I'm curious why we couldn't keep it there, but just refurbish or rebuild at the current site. What's the significant need to move from where it is now?
The idea would, well, if we built at the current site, we would have to close sempervirens and not have those services currently until that building was built. And really, I don't know that any community member would be okay with that.
No, I don't believe anyone would, but it helps understand why we need to move that site then. So I appreciate that. That's all I have at the moment.
The county is working. It is part of the facility master plan of the county to expand and really build facilities that work for the county and not have the additional leases that they have and that kind of stuff. So it is a priority currently for the county and the Board of Supervisors to do this work.
Thank you. Councilmember Contreras-Deloche, did you have your hand up? Oh, okay. Thank you, Director Beck, for being here. We really appreciate the work you do. And for that, we will, seeing no more questions, we'll open it up for public comment. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item? Seeing no one in chambers, do you see anyone on Zoom?
I see no one on Zoom.
So we will bring it back to council for a vote. Councilmember Castellano.
Thank you. Let's see. Well, first, I just want to say that thank you for these efforts and for improving, creating, doing the work to seek funding for a new facility. I do think it would be a welcome tool and very valuable for our community for there to be able to be medical clearance on location, and I do appreciate that there will be increased capacity at Mad River, but I also think it could be useful to increase the licensing, or at least understand what might be needed to increase the licensing capacity at some providers in the future, because definitely with the kind of changes in legislation, it seems like we already need more services, and so I'm anticipating that we'll need possibly even more services. And I know that this is hard work, so thank you for taking charge of that. And on that, I move to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of support for the Humboldt County Department of Health and Human Services Behavior Health Infrastructure Grant application. And I do hope that you are successful.
Second.
Great. And I see that before we vote, Councilmember Fernandez has his hand up.
I do.
For a comment?
Thank you, Mayor. And I wasn't sure quite where to put the question or comment because similar to what Councilmember Castellano was asking, I'm curious. In our 2x2 with the county, I believe that's Council Members Bauer and Contreras-Deloche.
Yes.
Okay. I was curious if they'd had any conversations with the representatives from the county about the potential to expand beds or what that might require.
Councilmember Bauer, you want to answer, or either one?
I think we know the issue. You're licensed for 16 beds. It takes time. We haven't discussed what kind of length of time. I think it's pretty drawn out process, but of course we support that, and we can certainly have that conversation. I think it'd be more of something probably we need. I think you're wanting to meet with Director Beck. I would be happy to join with that conversation and explore that more.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't want to step on any toes, and I just wanted to get some clarity on the communication there with the county. So, it's already been affirmed by at least one other council member. So thank you, Councilmember Bauer.
Great. So with that, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Aye.
Thank you, Councilmember Fernandez. Unanimous yes vote. Motion carries.
Great. And I know it's a bit early, but we are going to take a 5-minute break. I need to talk to you. With an engineering and traffic survey for speed zoning plan adaptation.
Mayor Burgell, we have legislative correspondence.
Yes, we do. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly.
So we are going to first have, I apologize, this meeting's been kind of crazy with the weather, with everything. It's been kind of a bit off, but here we are. We're enjoying this meeting and everybody here. So we appreciate you, all of you. Yes. All right, so we are now going to move forward with the legislative action correspondence. Does anyone have any legislative action correspondence? You gotta love it. Seeing none, we're going to move forward to engineering and traffic survey for speed zoning with City Engineer Willer. Welcome, and thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm going to introduce Jay Waldebor. He's a project manager in engineering and assists in managing much of our transportation and traffic-related programs, tasks, and projects. You may see Jay from time to time out in the city at one of our 27 traffic signals in a traffic box, doing what needs to be done. Tonight, Jay will present our engineering and traffic survey for speed zones. This survey helps us set speed limits to allow for the use of radar by the police department enforce those speed limits. I want to point out before I turn it over to Jay that there are many factors that go into how speeds are set, and none of those factors are rash or made without careful evaluation and consideration. And with that, I'll turn it over to Jay.
Thank you, Jesse. Good evening. And just like to start by going and presenting the radar speed survey, and this is a presentation for setting safe speeds and enforceable speeds for the city of Eureka. And traffic rules account for most of the contact by average citizens with law enforcement and the courts. Enforcement of the laws are widely perceived as unreasonable, breeds disrespect and even contempt towards those who make or enforce those laws. Okay. On this slide, what the law requires. In order to utilize radar enforcement, local jurisdictions are required to perform an engineering and traffic survey as required every 5 to 7 years, sometimes 10. In the new AB law, it is actually extended to 14 years. The city of Eureka, along with all other jurisdictions in the state of California, are required to set speed limits on arterial and collector streets using the California Vehicle Code and the California Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. The California Vehicle Code Section 4802 and the California Manual on Traffic Control Devices Section 2B.13 requires an engineering and traffic survey to be completed every 5 or 7 to 10 years if speed limits are to be enforced with use of radar. Local jurisdictions may elect to systematically identify and implement reduced speed zones or collect the requisite data on a case-by-case basis. In basic speed law, all states base their speed regulations on the basic speed law, California Vehicle Code Section 22350. And the prima facie speed limits, certain prima facie speed limits are established by state law, California Vehicle Code 22352. We have pretty standard 50 miles per hour at railroad crossings, approaching at uncontrolled intersections and within alleyways. We have 25 miles per hour within a business or residential district, within school zones and adjacent to senior centers. And this next slide illustrates the latest functional classification map for the city of Eureka. All streets listed on the functional classification map as collectors and arterials must be included in the traffic and engineering survey to allow of radar enforcement. All right. Benefits of setting speed limits using standard procedures. Setting speed limits using a standard procedure satisfies the requirements of the state law. Improper setting of speed limits causes enforcement issues with tickets being dismissed, safety problems by creating a greater division in speed and loss of platooning, and road rage incidents, disrespect for traffic control devices, and erratic driving behaviors. Rational speed limits. According to Section 627 of the California Vehicle Code, engineering and traffic surveys shall include prevailing speeds of traffic, collision records and highway, traffic and roadside conditions not readily apparent to the driver. The measured 85th percentile speeds are the starting point for established speed limits. California Vehicle Code Section 627 then allows increasing or reducing the 85th percentile speed up to 5 miles per hour based on collisions, highway, traffic, roadside conditions not readily apparent to the driver, residential density, and pedestrian and bicycle safety. The 85th percentile, the California MUTCD Section 2B.13 states that when a speed limit is to be posted, it shall be within 5 miles per hour of the 85th percentile. The most widely accepted method by state and local agencies is to set the limit at or below the speed at which 85% of the traffic is moving. Studies have shown crash rates are lowest at or around the 85th percentile speed. Drivers traveling significantly faster or slower than this speed are at greater risk for being involved in an accident. And then right here we have a collision history chart. Fatal and injury collisions in Eureka occurring from 1993 to 2023 have decreased in the past 30 years, having a significant decrease specifically in the past decade. We have enforcement issues. Some variations in collisions may be due to weather, reporting standards, changes in trip generations, and because of traffic control devices being installed. Okay. Speed limits that are set unreasonably low will lead to unsafe turning movements and erratic behaviors. Why use of radar for enforcement? The 5 E's of traffic are enforcement, education, engineering, equity, and emergency response. Radar is also used for monitoring of speeds to increase traffic safety. Okay, and we have results of this speed survey for 2024. 63 street segments where the speed limit can remain as posted and radar can be utilized. And we have 4 street segments where speed limits can be lowered and still utilize radar enforcement. Those street segments are Fairfield, between Wabash Street and Harrison Avenue, and those speeds will be from 30 to 25 miles per hour. We have McCollins Avenue from Broadway to Glen Street, and those speeds will be from 30 to 25 miles per hour. Myrtle Avenue from West Avenue to Harris Avenue, and those speeds will be from 35 to 30. And that is more of a uniform approach because we already have a 30 mile per hour speed limit set from 5th to West. And Central Avenue at Harris to South Avenue from 30 to 25 miles per hour.
Just a point of clarification, if I could.
Yes.
So are you talking about Harris Street, which it looks like you probably are, or are you talking about Harrison Avenue?
Oh, Harris Street.
Harris Street.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
That's just a typo. And then they're all being reduced on the California Vehicle Code 627, which is based on residential density. If you have 16 homes within a quarter-mile radius, you can consider that residential density enough to reduce the speed limit. And these are the changes in speed limits over the past decade from 2014 to 2024. Throughout the city, we have reduced speeds at 25 street segment locations. Typically, you can actually see on H&I, we went from 35 to 30. 7th Street, we went down from 30 to 25. So throughout the locations highlighted in blue, you can see where we've made those changes over the last decade. And these are the current speed limits throughout the city of Eureka. And this is the 30-year average of traffic speed for the 85th percentile. We really haven't changed drastically throughout the last 30 years. In 1989, we're at 34.5. And to 2024, we're right around 32 miles per hour for the 85th percentile. And to summarize, we have all recommendations within the report were made after consulting with the Public Works Department, Engineering Department, and the Eureka Police Department. Approximately 10 signs will be needed to be replaced at a material cost about $250. And staff recommends that council receives and adopts the radar speed zone report. And for that, I'll open up for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Councilmember Moulton?
Hi, thank you for that. I appreciate this data-driven approach. Would you mind, I wanted to see the last slide. I would love to see the slide where you showed the changes that are being proposed.
Okay.
I think Derek's going to.
Derek's 2 on it. A couple more. Yep, that one. Nope, there we go. Thank you. Yeah, 3 of these are in my ward, and
I hear about them lots, and none of these should ever be should have been as high as 30 miles an hour going through there. I'm delighted to see this, and especially because it's the data that's driving this change. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions? I can't see Zoom. Does Councilmember Fernandez have a question? Councilmember Fernandez.
Do. Thank you, Mayor. I know we had received a few comments, one of which had mentioned Assembly Bill 43 from 2003. I don't know if, are you familiar with that? Because of course I was just learning about it as it was presented to us, at least via email.
Yes, I'm familiar with Assembly Bill 43.
Okay, and so of the 60 remaining areas, would any of those comport or work well with at least the framework as it's outlined in Assembly Bill 43 in terms of bringing those down for predominantly residential? I forget how it's defined, so you'll forgive me on my ignorance of that. I apologize.
Yes, those streets were played in a factor. There's also another California Vehicle Code 21400B, which states that if a speed has been reduced in a previous location where the 85th percentile has it to be decreased, it cannot be decreased again. So with AB 43, in some of these locations, you can't drop the speed from 25 to 20. So with that's just some of the justifications that we have throughout the city. And in the previous survey, we dropped it in 25 locations.
Okay. But I appreciate that bit of history there too. Thank you for that. So we're really at this point kind of held to that 85th percentile as it's currently defined then.
That's some of the approaches. That is the engineering approach that we use, the 85th percentile speed survey for the engineering and traffic survey that we conduct. Now, when we go and do street by street basis on local roads and determine that we can drop the speed like we have at some of these other locations at Myrtle from west to Harrison, those just were not dropped previously, and we're able to, based on the engineering and traffic survey and California Vehicle Code 21400B.
Thank you.
I just have a couple of questions. So first of all, I'm just curious, these are just curious questions, and they'll just be brief, but since we've lowered the speeds at 6th, 7th, H and I, have collisions gone down?
Yes.
Wonderful. Pedestrian deaths have gone down?
Yes.
Yes. And this is funny, a question. Are there any uncontrolled intersections left in Eureka? I know there used to be a lot by my house, and they've all been changed, so I was just curious. And maybe that's for a later time. You can get back to me.
I can't answer that 100% with clarity.
Okay.
But I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah.
Oh, there's two.
Well, I think they're not all four-way controlled, but there's some sort of control on all of our intersections, correct, Dick? Oh, sorry. I was told by the previous public works director, who was my boss, that was the case. But the vast majority of them are. They may not be all stop signs, but at least a yield or something. But the vast majority of them are.
Did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I more or less what City Manager Slattery was stating. And there's as far as speed goes, it's one thing to set speed limits and have the ability to enforce those speed limits and what we're trying to accomplish with this speed survey today. But there's also those other things that we're trying to accomplish out in the city when it comes to trying to slow people down, when it's the engineering side of things with many of the projects that we've had, the safety projects where we've had bulb outs installed, H&I Street, doing lane reductions. That also slows vehicles down typically when you have, when the lane, when there's the perception of, having more hardscape in the roadway to slow people down, fairway drive. So there's definitely other things outside of speed limits to try to reduce speeds. And we got to remember that we got to use all those different things, the 5 E's that Jay mentioned, in order to try to really get at reducing speeds and really to get at safety, right? Because that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
and then working with Caltrans too on 4th, 5th, and Broadway. While they're not in our control as far as streets go, those are some of our major safety concerns in the city, and definitely something that we need to continue to work with Caltrans on, making sure that we make those thoroughfares through the city more safe for pedestrians, cyclists, and also vehicular traffic.
Great. Thank you so much. Seeing no more questions from council, we'll open up the public comment. Is there anyone in chambers that would like to comment on this item? Okay. Seeing no one, I see we have CRTP on Zoom. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. This is Colin Fisk, Executive Director of CRTP, the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities. I want to start by saying that lowering vehicle speeds is probably the most important thing we can do to reduce injuries and deaths on the roadway, and so that should be a really high priority for the city, and I know it has been recently. I think, as City Engineer Willard just mentioned, there are lots of different ways to slow speeds, and all of the most effective ones are in fact, engineering and design related. But that being said, speed limits do have an impact on the speed that people drive, and they are an important sort of expectation setter for drivers. I think, the way that we set speed limits, and you heard a little bit about the 85th percentile speed, really over the last several decades, the justifications for that have been pretty thoroughly debunked. People do not drive at safe speeds independently, and using the speeds that people drive to set the speed limit results in the perpetuation of unsafe speeds. But that being said, we're unfortunately stuck with this method as the basis for setting speed limits. And I do appreciate that staff have, gone out of their way to not increase speed limits, but to decrease them in some situations. That said, there are additional possibilities under AB 43 for lowering speed limits in other locations. And a couple of those things that should be pursued, I think, include designating, you can designate up to 20% of the streets in the city as a high injury network or safety corridor, where you can unilaterally lower speeds by 5% if they haven't already, or by 5 miles per hour if they haven't already been lowered. You can also identify business activity districts that meet state law criteria and lower those to either 20 or 25 miles per hour, depending on the context. And you can identify land uses that generate significant bike and pedestrian trips and lower speed limits around those. Again, the opportunities are somewhat limited, but I do believe that, when you combine all of these additional opportunities, you'll find other locations where speed limits can be lowered and should be lowered, and to do it in a comprehensive way, along with the engineering interventions, I think is the best approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. Do you see anyone else, Shannon?
I see no one else on Zoom.
Great. So with that, we'll bring it back to council for comments and motion. Councilmember Contreras-Deloach.
This was just mentioned again with our most recent commenter, but we had received, comments through email, and I had read that, and I was curious about the feasibility of those, and I forget what they were called, and they were just mentioned again, but zones like business areas where that area can be zoned, or corridors, and I know that, like, for instance, H&I, it's already been decreased, and so I don't know if that means it can't be decreased again, but I was curious about those corridors. I know City Manager Slattery and I talked about this as well, and I was just kind of curious, like, is that something that we can explore, or is that something that's that's it.
So I'll rely on project manager, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna hack your name. Waterbore, close.
Yes, that was
Jay. I'm gonna call Jay for the purposes of not hacking his name. I heard what public commenter said. The business districts and those things, in my understanding of our business districts, are low. I think Henderson Center's 20, 25, and so is Old Town. I don't know and I'll rely on project manager for this, but if we had done studies in those areas, I don't know if those business districts trump that section B. So I'll leave that up to you to.
Yeah, so we have, as city staff, we have gone out and monitored the local speeds at our business district, where we have a uniform speed set, and where it's uniform across the board of 25 miles per hour. Henderson Center, our business district, primarily throughout the city, we have lowered the speed limit to 25 miles per hour. There are some other locations that are still at 30 that were dropped down from 35 miles per hour from the previous survey. But when we as city staff go and look at the safety corridors, we always revert back to Broadway, 4th and 5th, because that's where the majority of our collisions are. Just over the last 5 years, we've had 112 total injury collisions. 66 of those were on Broadway, 4th and 5th. That's nearly 60%. So our safety corridors, when we look at these areas as a city, we gravitate towards Broadway, 4th and 5th, when we have looked at other areas, but those are our focus points.
I just have a quick follow-up question about that. Broadway and 4th and 5th, those aren't actually ours, right? I mean, we don't have say over them. Who does? Is that Caltrans?
Yeah, they're part of the state highway system. So
Okay.
not City of Eureka.
What? Okay.
255 as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
I was just going to add,
Sure.
we have, certain areas like our business districts, as Jay mentioned, they're all kind of set at those certain speeds. And I mean, if there's a desire to look more deeply at those, we don't see those as really having a great impact on slowing people down in those areas to make that, the impact of having slower speeds. In some cases too, though, there's, we really see it gets to a certain point, I think, where you lower the speed limit, and then we've already lowered the speed limit as far as our interpretation of the vehicle code. It's difficult to continue to lower those speed limits. It doesn't seem like there's an option for that once you've lowered it recently, but we're going to look more into that. That's just our interpretation of what we're reading in the code. And then some of our, I think having, continue to monitor that. I guess to get back to your question about speed, the other areas, business districts, a lot of times the code is really talking about the state highway systems when it's talking about, because this code covers all the state highway system and then also local roads. So you can think about a highway where there's a small community that's right there that has a business district, and having that being able to be slowed down in that area versus maybe where we have our old town, downtown Henderson Center, where it's more of a city center and it's already kind of a gridded, built out network. So it's a little different from that standpoint. But I think there are things we need to continue to monitor them and watch and determine when it's a good time to make those decisions to evaluate lowering the speeds again. If we have a street that continues to see increasing speeds, we need to look at it and evaluate, do we need to do some sort of hardscape improvements there? I think that is something that we need to continue to look forward to. We have a lot of bicycle boulevards that are going in that will create slower speeds based on the infrastructure that's being built in the roadway, with C Street coming up in this next year. And so we'll see how that affects speeds with a lot of median islands and one-way diverters as far as that corridor goes. So I think we always need to continue to study, evaluate our roads, and be ready to make changes that make sense. And especially as times change, right? Viewpoints change, state code changes quite often. So thank you.
And along with that, with Assembly Bill 43, it allows us to revisit some of these street segments on a case-by-case basis and make adjustments. That's one of the upsides to the new law.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Castellano?
Thanks for the presentation and your work on this. As I'm listening and I'm kind of thinking about the neighborhood naming project that we're doing and the sort of developing neighborhood character, and just kind of thinking that a complement to this is, as we start to get, develop this different kind of sense of neighborhood or cultivate a sense of neighborhood, of also incorporating, and I think this is related to what Jesse is talking about too is, like the kind of engineering designs, but, incorporating things like city repair in Portland does, where we're kind of incorporating like different ways that people in the community can also engage in, maybe it's like some neighbors want to get together and create a parklet or something, those kinds of things that will also help slow down speeds and create more opportunities for building neighborhood connection, right? And I think that's, there's the safety effect, but there's also there's the, the effect of, and there's a lot of cars driving by, like people aren't going to like hang out like on the edge of the street and talk to their neighbors because it's uncomfortable, right? And we want to cultivate those opportunities for people to talk to their neighbors and for, kids to play little basketball games and, things like that. Anyway, so I do think that there's some ways we can think about sort of community planning that can complement this kind of work too.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that opportunity. We currently with the Transportation Safety Committee, we have a subcommittee that's working on our neighborhood streets program that basically is a lot what you described. We're working on identifying some streets within the city where we can have temporary features be included in to kind of slow or limit the amount of space that would come through in a residential setting. And so we're working with the Transportation Safety Committee to identify those same things now. So, trying to create that sense of space and also, slow people down, create a safe environment for people to, have community on the street. So it's something, that pilot project that we're working towards, and it's step by step, we're getting there. It's slow, it's a new process, and we're continuing on with that. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer.
No, I appreciate what Councilmember Castellano said about kind of rethinking how, our cities look and make them more friendly for, I grew up playing soccer and football in the street, so you don't see that very much anymore. But I will say that it seems like the focus should be more on engineering solutions, like you were saying, designing, bike boulevards and that kind of thing. Because when you look at the numbers, overall, in the past, 15 years, speed's gone down 1.5 miles per hour, which is like, good job, community. Even though certain segments of street are pretty fast, people are still driving too fast, But I don't know if reducing speed really changes behavior. It's like, hey, get up earlier, and so you're not late to school and work. Those are like the changes that society has to make. But I see that there are engineering possibilities that would slow people down. And H&I Street, I think, is a great example. The bulb outs, they do slow you down. Maybe you don't like them, and people are getting used to them. But just thinking about that long term versus we could put it at 15 miles per hour on every street, and people are still going to go 35. It's just a fact, unless they feel constricted by the roadway. So I look forward to that kind of thought when we look at our roads more and our transportation, that we think about those engineering type of design that just makes you slow down. You don't feel comfortable speeding through a neighborhood, which people still do. So, but I'm happy to see that. I was surprised to see actually that our overall speed has gone down. So that's great. Thank you.
Along with the slowed street programs that Jesse just discussed, we also brought to the Transportation Safety Commission quick build applications, which can also be utilized for traffic calming and street slowing. So there are multiple different approaches that we can take to slowing down our citizens throughout the city.
When I was young, I played football on the street, and we actually had a full football field marked on our street with the center line and everything. So if that's something you can look into, Engineer Will, that would be great.
Great. So seeing no further comments. No, this is just receiving a report, isn't it? It is. So Yeah, we appreciate your great work. Thank you so much. Thanks for a great report. Very informative. Yep. So we will move on to future agenda items. Does anyone have a future agenda item that they want to discuss? Okay, seeing no one, we'll move on to city manager reports. Participatory budget update with city manager Slattery.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and Council, once again. For this, I have brought our Director of Finance Director Millar, to discuss the status of the participatory budgeting.
Good evening. I have a verbal report for you tonight. So we're in the middle of our second participatory budget, or PB. We took a different direction this time around. What I tried to do this time was kind of take a lot of the staff or the city's influence out of the program, and to really let the people that, or the volunteers, kind of take the wheel. That has proven to be a lot harder and a lot more inefficient than the first round. So there's been some progress, but nothing significant. I do want to credit Suzanne Ross-Mantle over here. She's done most of the work. But we started the program in March when I presented to council. We advertised through April. In May, we found our volunteers for each ward, and we got going with a couple wards. In June and July, we did a training. We talked about doing a public outreach event, but then it started to fizzle out during the summer. A lot of people get busy. This isn't a small ask. This is kind of a big ask in terms of, thinking about what projects you want to do, reaching out to the community, working with staff. That in itself is a tall order, but I honestly think the hardest thing about this program is thinking of the right project. I think we attracted people that want to be engaged with the city, but having such an open slate, I think actually made the program a little bit harder, because I think there's a lot of pressure in thinking of what they can do with the money, and if that project would be seen positively by their fellow ward members. We're going to continue to see if we can get a few of these volunteers to finish their projects, but I do have some ideas about how to maybe change the program in the future so that it's more ongoing, and kind of I would like it to be available to people that kind of come to you and have these ideas about how they can make their ward better. So I'd like to capture those ideas that come naturally just over time, and to give them an avenue where they could do, not too much work, maybe an application, a project description that they would then submit to their council member, and that council member of that ward would determine if they would want to go forward with that project. We could incorporate different committees to review these project ideas, but that is just kind of something I'm going to throw at the wall at the moment, because I realize that doing it this way is a lot of time and effort on both city staff, but also the people that want to volunteer. So that is all I have for tonight, but I'd be happy to answer any questions. And Suzanne is over there. And
thank you. Yeah. Councilmember Moulton.
Thank you. I don't have a question so much as a suggestion. Well, first, I like the suggestion box idea, basically, so somebody can hand over an idea without having to put in the time commitment of actually participating in participatory budgeting. But my suggestion is to reinstate and fund the youth council, potentially for at least part of this. To get the kids involved and give them some money to spend.
So after we had that discussion, I had a discussion with community services. That project is being revamped. We did go out this year to solicit participation, and similar to participatory budgeting, we weren't successful in getting participation from any students. That program,
Bet you'd get more if they had money to spend.
and so that program, I brought this up to community services supervisor Thomas, and he loves the idea. And so as a part of that revamp, we will be in discussions with them about this being a component of the youth council, and that's something we can do. Yes.
It could even be that they are the committee that goes through the proposals that are sent out by other folks, similar to how the grown-up council, decides how to spend the money. Otherwise, we would just end up with them spending money on youth things, which is also great. But if they could actually just be the ones who do the procedure of making the decision on how the money gets spent or which projects get funded.
Yeah, we can definitely discuss that in department head and come up with a plan for that. That is something that's, when we did the youth council before, it was based on a specific topic, and they kind of brought back, and they had a representative sit up there and tell you guys what their committee had decided. We can do something very similar to that, but have more of an incentive for them to make a decision that would make change in the city.
Councilmember Castellano?
Thanks. I do appreciate the youth, just kind of revamping, revitalizing the youth council. I do also, I'm kind of a yes and sort of person, but, would like to see non-youth adults, have the opportunity to continue to give. I'm curious, because I know I have people come to me with ideas. Is it too late to get involved in this round? Okay, so if I know people with ideas, connect them to Suzanne.
There she is.
Hello, Council. There is a website, I believe it is eurekaca.gov/pb, but if you search on your favorite search engine, City of Eureka, Participatory Budgeting, it should come up. It is part of Talk Eureka, so if you go to talk.eurekaca.gov, it will show up there as the participatory budgeting thing. You can submit an idea through that. You do have to sign up to submit, so you show that you are within Eureka. You don't have to be in Eureka to submit an idea, but some of it you do have to sign up, sorry. But yes, it is available. There's information about how to get there. So talk.eurekaca.gov, and it's that first one there with the I Love Eureka mural. So,
thank you. Any other further comments? Great. I would say with the youth council, you might consider talking to them about the timeline, because I know towards the end of the year there's a lot going on, and it's challenging, and I know that was when I was advocating for that several years ago, that timing was an issue. So just an FYI. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to council reports. And we will start with Councilmember Castellano.
Okay. I attended the Northern California Association of Nonprofits conference. It's really great to see just the robust nonprofit sector we have. I also attended the Humboldt Transit Authority meeting, and Michelle did touch on it, but this new grant that Humboldt Transit Authority has coming in to fund basically, 15-minute travel times, and is going to be really exciting for the community. I attended the Humboldt Waste Management Authority meeting. There's some good, continuing to work on the composting. There's going to be a request for proposals going out in the coming year to address the community composting. And I just wanted to say, This week is also the Trans Week of Remembrance, and so there's events happening throughout the week honoring folks in our community and beyond who are trans, and also recognizing that many lives are lost due to to the struggles of trans people. And so I'm not going to announce all the events because I don't, but if that's something that is meaningful to you, look for those events. There's things happening almost every day through Sunday.
Thank you for bringing that forward. I appreciate that. Councilmember Moulton.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I have no travel to report. I missed a Eureka City Schools 2x2 because my little student was ill. The Humboldt Bay Fire meeting was canceled due to no new business, but there is new stuff going on over at Humboldt Bay Fire, especially in the second ward. The Station 3 right there on Ocean is being remodeled, which is very exciting to see those facilities get updated. They're going from, one of the big things that's happening is they're going from dorms to single rooms so that hopefully we can gain more female firefighters in our city. So there's actually a place for them to stay when they do the overnight shifts there, because we can't continue ignoring half of the workforce when it comes to our understaffed departments. It's important to note that service will not be interrupted. Although Station 3 isn't going to be operating during the remodel, those folks moved over to Station 1 and service won't be interrupted. I got to attend the return of, and I'm going to try it, Dagawatluk, the Samoa Dunes and the wetlands out there. What an incredibly moving ceremony to watch the singing demonstration and just the symbolic signing, and every part of it's wonderful. That is such a beautiful and unique environment that I regularly get to hike through. It is actually where the Kinetic Grand Championship crosses over the dunes, and it's wonderful to see that back in the hands of folks who are really going to continue their tradition of stewarding the land as they have been since time immemorial. I would just also like to point out and encourage people to look at those board and commission vacancies. Our COP board, the world is run by whomever shows up, and these are the nitpicky things that actually make the decisions and make the plans and how the money gets spent. And if you want to really affect the direction of our community, being one of the decision makers on these boards is a really great way to do that. Some of them even get paid. So check that out at eurekaca.gov. Look for boards and commissions.
Thank you. Councilmember Fernandez.
Thank you. Travel related. Well, I'm currently in Dallas for the National Association of National Association for Latino elected and appointed officials, NALEO. This is their biennial conference for newly-ish, such as myself, elected officials going back to 22. So it's been a great opportunity so far this first day to compare our work locally to that of others from different parts of the country. In some ways, we're doing fantastic, particularly with meetings like this and our rules and our policies. I'm looking forward to learning more over the next few days about how to further improve our community engagement and share ideas here. Thank you, Councilmember Castellano, for mentioning the Trans Week of Resistance. Suffice to say, some of the events may be on hold due to weather, so yeah, look for updates on social media. Recently participated in a transit ride-along with the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities, and one of our residents who uses that as their primary form of transportation. It was an interesting ride from McCollins and Broadway to Winco, and at least for that ride, the proximity of the stops and their destination were pretty fair, it seemed. After a bit of shopping at Winco, I can say that at least the buses are very timely. We were running late, unfortunately, and missed the bus, so it was either hop on the next one and ride around for an hour or walk a little over a mile back to the original stop. So chose to do the former there and ride around and get more of a view through the eyes of transit riders. And then also had attended our 2x2 with Eureka City Schools. suffice to say with this, no news about Jacobs other than waiting for CHP to respond to just figure out where things are moving from there. And then, of course, had a very long and in-depth conversation about school safety amidst the recurring threats that had happened over the months towards the end of September and October, and their response to them, they being the school district, and how they do have their safety plan coming up, which, well, they usually reserve that towards the end of the school year to go over and review, but they're discussing bringing that up a lot sooner, probably within the next month or two. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Bauer.
Yeah, first, thank you, Councilmember Fernandez, about Eureka High. It's a daily occurrence, it seems like, that we have some kind of threat, which is getting really tiresome. So thank you for bringing that up. Kind of was a quiet few weeks, which was a welcome respite from election season. But I did have a county 2x2 meeting. We talked about housing. We talked about medical, which I'll get into in a second, because I had a lot of opportunity to go talk to people, walking door to door, and I learned that we're an aging population, which I think we all knew that. But one of the main concerns was medical services, and that has been ongoing for years, and we need to work on that. I don't know, what the city can do, but Supervisor Arroyo is working on some discussions and meetings to talk about how do we recruit medical personnel, how do we keep them here, and the community really needs it. I realize, it was really striking to see just how much more we're going to need in the next 10 years just by people's age in the community. So I hope to work on that hard the next 4 years to figure out how we can make our community safer and people have the services they need. So I appreciate Supervisor Arroyo taking that leadership role, and I hope to work with her on that. And yeah, JPA was canceled. I want to apologize. There was a badge pinning ceremony on Friday. I missed it. Sorry, Captain. Tyler became a captain, so apologize for that. But great to see people promoting up and taking a leadership role at Humboldt Bay Fire. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Contreras DeLoach.
Yeah, so I also got to attend the 2x2 for the Board of Supervisors and City Council, and I just wanted to echo what Councilmember Bauer just said. Supervisor Arroyo said that she had conducted something around like 40 interviews, in the community with various leaders, and she's going to be doing a panel discussion. It won't be a town hall, but it'll be a panel discussion. I think it's January 27th. So there'll be more details coming forward on that. And that is part of our strategic visioning. If you guys remember from, almost 2 years ago, we talked about trying to figure out how we can kind of do that. And so I think, being supportive in whatever way, I feel the same way was Councilmember Bauer. We need to do something. And then I also got to go to the ceremony for the return of the Wiyot's land, Digawatak. And that was really cool. Getting to see the ceremony was lovely. And I'm trying to remember the name of the lady who said the prayer.
Cheryl Seidner.
So lovely. Just precious, sweet. Anyway, and then and they danced and they sang. It was really beautiful. So I also got to do Pathway to Payday, which of course I love. I always love it, but this one was particularly special. This group was particularly special. There was just something about them, and that was something Sierra and I talked about too. So I hope everybody on the council gets to participate sometimes on these, because it's really something. And I got to attend the Veterans Day celebration. That was lovely. It was a very humbling moment when they were calling out each of the wars, for the veterans, and no one stood for World War II. And I know that we still have a handful of survivors from World War II here in our community, but they're, very old and infirm. And I was just thinking what an important thing. I have a lot of veterans in my family, and my great-grandfather was a veteran of World War II. He passed away in 2014. And just how important it is for us to carry history with us, particularly of that time period, because it's getting lost because there's no one here anymore. And then one last thing, I just want to remind everybody: November is Native American Heritage Month, so so many ways to be involved and to honor that history in our local community. So,
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you all four, and you guys too. And with that, oh, you five. Yes, I'm sorry, Mario. I keep forgetting you're up there. We're adjourned.
Giant head, right?